Welcome to the Windows 7 webcast for Readiness Assessment and Roadmap Planning. My name is T.D. Williams, and I'm a consulting manager with Catapult Systems, and my main focus is helping companies migrate to Windows 7. The goal of the webcast is to assist companies in assessing where they stand with regards to their current desktop environment and begin planning for their migration to Windows 7. It will show how Windows 7 can assist in developing efficiencies that can lead to transformation of IT into a strategic asset. Today's agenda will begin with a background discussion on Windows 7 and some of the challenges associated with moving to the new platform. Next, by creating a vision for your Windows 7 migration program, success factors can be defined. These key considerations will rely heavily on where your organization stands with regards to application compatibility, Microsoft Office, and your Windows 7 desktop deployment strategy. Finally, by gaining an understanding of these three key areas, we will discuss what you need to be thinking about in order to develop your Windows 7 migration roadmap. A migration roadmap is a key tool in helping you define your approach, schedule, resource requirements, and budgetary estimates for your overall migration program. So what are the challenges associated with migrating to Windows 7? Well, first, let's talk about Windows Vista. Windows 7 is built on the same basic architecture as Windows Vista. So if an application will work on Vista, most likely it will retain compatibility on Windows 7. For those organizations who have migrated to Windows Vista, this alone will make adopting Windows 7 much less challenging than migrating from Windows XP to Windows Vista. However, many organizations are still standardized on Windows XP. They will need to transition to updated versions of key applications. The availability of Windows Vista compatible applications and drivers has dramatically grown since the release of Vista. But for those applications that do not work on Windows 7, they will need a bridge to a compatible version through the use of well-proven shim techniques or virtualization. This will buy time to upgrade and keep your migration on track. The Windows Vista operating system introduced architectural changes down to the kernel level that made the OS inherently more secure than Windows XP. However, this came at a cost. Many applications needed modification in order to function properly in a Windows Vista environment. Benefiting from several years in the marketplace, at this point in the OS development lifecycle, most applications are now compatible on Vista. In most cases, if they're compatible on Vista, they'll run on Windows 7. Looking back, after many companies completed their migration to Windows XP, initial planning for migration to Vista revealed several concerns. Many of the top concerns surrounding Windows XP to Windows Vista upgrades included user account control, application compatibility, Windows resource protection, Internet Explorer 7 protected mode, Windows Vista 64-bit, Windows filtering platform, operating system version changes, deprecations, changes to the GINA, Session 0 issues, and just the general availability of drivers. Because of these issues, many businesses chose not to upgrade to Vista and are now looking to Windows 7 as their next major desktop and laptop operating system upgrade. While many of these issues still exist with the move from XP to Windows 7, with a little planning, companies can gain an understanding of the challenges associated with the migration. Developing a roadmap and vision for your Windows 7 migration will reduce risk and uncertainty associated with the effort. So before we talk about why and when you should migrate to Windows 7, let's take a look at where you stand today with regards to how you manage your current environment. Implementing management tools for desktops can help simplify IT management and help transform IT into a strategic asset. For example, you can plan for and deploy patches, operating systems, and applications across the network. The tools also provide guidance about how you can use virtualization and branch office technologies to improve your IT infrastructure. The 4 levels of optimization take you from a basic infrastructure in which there are no standards for hardware, operating systems, or applications, to a dynamic infrastructure that can help you to employ a capacity analysis solution. This system can help you understand what capacity you already have and can help you make sure that all of your resources are being fully utilized. At the basic level, there's no automated patch management, no standard images for most desktops, no desktop imaging strategy, no consistent plans to manage multiple desktops. At the standardized level, you might have automated patch management, a defined set of standard desktop images, desktop image strategy for things like your OS and antivirus, and you're starting to use management tools. The rationalized environment is one that has definitely standardized operating systems across the board, automated management and tracking for hardware and software, and automated OS image deployment and application deployment distribution. Finally, at the dynamic or strategic asset level, you have capacity analysis and planning. You have things like virtual hard drive manipulation for dynamic application access and recovery of desktop applications. Also, desktop virtualization and models enabled, such as ITIL, service-level monitoring of desktops and applications. So think about where you stand today with regards to moving to Windows 7. Building in new processes to assist in your migration and ongoing desktop management strategy will help you make the move a success. So why should you migrate? Well, first of all, there's some short-term cost savings. For some companies, this is an opportunity to standardize on their hardware and standardize on software images and management. Through these, you'll obtain a better use of managing your network through Active Directory and group policy. Some of the long-term cost savings are, as you move further along in the Microsoft I/O model, you can develop things like fleet deployment by role, group-based image configuration, and full automation with remote support. Enhanced productivity, security, and management. Through several enhancements with Windows 7, employees can work with fewer interruptions because Windows 7 delivers solid performance and reliability from day one. There's been an extended beta and RC development period that have ensured that Windows 7 is ready to go. With direct access, mobile users can simply and more securely access corporate resources when out of the office. And with tools such as Branch Cache, this makes users in branch offices with slow connections more productive by speeding access to frequently accessed files and web pages. In the area of enhanced security and control, Windows 7 helps deliver increased flexibility with securing computers and data. Organizations can worry less about sensitive data on lost laptops or USB drives because, in addition to protecting internal hard disks, Windows BitLocker drive encryption encrypts external thumb drives and hard disks with BitLocker to go. This provides also with the provisioning of recovery keys so that data can be accessible at any time. For enterprises that demand the highest level of compliance, IT professionals can use new application blocking tools in AppLocker to dictate which applications can run on user computers, providing yet another way to limit risk. Finally, streamline PC management. Whether IT professionals manage and deploy desktops, laptops, or virtual environments, Windows 7 makes the job easier. There's advanced image management and deployment tools, new scripting and automation capabilities, and for enterprises making the leap to client virtualization, Windows 7 helps you more easily maintain virtual machine images with the same tools that you can use for physical images. Depending on your desktop optimization maturity level, basic or standardized, moving towards rationalized and dynamic, Windows 7 will assist you in getting to your goals. So what's the vision? Basically, the goal is to build a migration program. And how do you do this? Through a series of readiness assessments and developing a roadmap that will help you plan and estimate your migration sub-projects. With these in hand, you can begin your move to Windows 7. So what are the success factors? There are three key areas of consideration that should be assessed in order to reduce risk associated with moving to Windows 7. Application compatibility, Microsoft Office, and desktop deployment. The success factors are realized when you gain an understanding of application compatibility challenges within your environment and understand the tools associated with Windows 7 that allow you to mitigate application compatibility issues. Next, by gaining an understanding of file compatibility challenges associated with migrating to a new version of Microsoft Office, you will gain an understanding that will allow you to see your environment with regards to Microsoft Office and get you to the next level. For many companies, they're on Microsoft Office 2003. They will definitely need to execute an Office readiness strategy so they can see what file issues they may encounter when they move. If you're already on Windows 2007, then this area you may not need to address. If you are in planning your Windows 7 migration, some companies are asking about Office 2010, but the recommendation is that you go ahead and move forward and not wait for Office 2010. If you do your readiness assessment for Office, the file formats will be the same in Office 2010, so it will not be a wasted effort. Finally, by gaining an understanding of your desktop deployment and management processes, and by reviewing the latest tools and rationalized and dynamic desktop management strategies, you can gain ideas for how you want to improve your desktop deployment. By completing these three assessments, you can develop a migration roadmap which will guide you to your Windows 7 migration program. So let's take a little bit closer look at these three areas and considerations. Application compatibility. Microsoft has an excellent tool called the Application Compatibility Toolkit that you can implement and use to prioritize and rationalize your applications, perform mitigations of application issues, and in general, assess the effort that it's going to take to mitigate applications that may not work in your environment. All of these outputs from this area of assessment should be captured for your roadmap. With Office Readiness, there's the Office Migration and Planning Manager, another free tool from Microsoft. It performs Office file scanning and reporting and will tell you the issues that you have in your environment with regards to Office files, whether or not they're Excel macros or Word macros or those types of issues. With regards to desktop deployment, there is the Microsoft Assessment and Planning Toolkit. Running this tool in your environment will give you a hardware assessment as well as additional compatibility assessments. And then looking at that information and looking at your imaging and packaging processes, you can evaluate new tools, assess the effort for migration with regards to desktop deployment, and again, capture the feedback for your roadmap. Finally, in developing the roadmap, by consolidating the assessments and your estimates, you should be able to build a preliminary project plan, develop your schedule, define resource requirements, and estimate your costs. So let's take a little bit closer look at each of these levels. So again, the Application Compatibility Toolkit is easily installed and configured in your environment. It requires a simple, SQL Express database. It will run on regular SQL databases. Basically, you install this and set up a share, and you deploy a set of agents to a key number of desktops. this agent will go out and inventory all of your applications in your environment on where it's deployed and sends that back to the console. Also, while the agent is running, it watches applications as they're being used. And as they're being used and making certain function calls, say on Windows XP, if those function calls are incompatible with Windows 7, it also captures that information. So all of that information comes back to a central console and allows you to manipulate it and organize it so that you can move forward. So basically, once you have a list of all these applications, you need to go through that list and prioritize them, which the tool helps you do. So setting them to mission critical, important, nice to have. By prioritizing them, what you're doing is taking the list of applications, which, in this particular example, by rolling out DCPs to about 100 desktops, we captured 2,500 applications. So by going through the prioritization process and the rationalization process, which is just simply stating that I'm only going to support this version of a particular application, or maybe 1 or 2 versions of an application. So, in other words, you don't need 9 different versions of Adobe Acrobat out there. By doing this, you take the problem from something that's large to much smaller, and basically to see what you're up against when it comes to your mitigation strategy. Finally, what the tool does is by synchronizing with the application compatibility information back at Microsoft, it will tell you which applications are compatible. So in this particular example, when we got down to only 200 applications, there's a potential that 50 to 75% or more of those were already compatible on Microsoft Vista. And if they're compatible on Vista, again, most likely they'll run on Windows 7. So really we came down to just a very small percentage, maybe 10%, 20% of applications that needed to be actually tested and mitigated. So further, there are additional tools within the toolkit once you have your list of applications that help you mitigate those applications and help them run on Windows 7. So there's techniques for shimming the applications, and then if all else fails, then you have additional options for either upgrading them or moving them to a virtualized environment for your migration. Next, with regards to Office Readiness, taking a little bit closer look at the Office Migration Planning Manager, you run an Office scan by deploying this out to desktops and laptops, or running it from your servers and pointing it to file shares. And this goes out and scans all of these devices for Office files, Word files, Excel, Microsoft Access databases, and basically pulls them into a log file, and that log file can be uploaded into a database where you have a front-end reporting engine that, again, allows you to take the problem, which may be tens of thousands of Office files, and shrink that down to a much more manageable percentage of files that have issues. Also included in the Office Migration Planning Manager are some tools that can help you do mass conversions from the 2003 format to the 2007 format. And again, if you're on 2003 today and you're asking yourself questions about should I do 07 or should I do 2010, you should go ahead and run through this readiness because it will not be a wasted effort, as again the file formats for 2010 will be the same as 2007. So then finally, taking a closer look at desktop deployment, as I mentioned, there's the Microsoft Assessment and Planning Toolkit, and this does, again, performs a series of scans and will do a hardware inventory for you and give you a compatibility analysis for Windows 7 and also provides some readiness reporting that you can use as inputs into your roadmap planning. Once you have that data, you should sit down with your teams that look at desktop deployment and imaging and assess your current imaging and application deployment processes. Where can you improve that? Where do you stand today? Are you at a standardized level and you want to move to rationalize or dynamic? If so, there are a lot of tools out there such as SCCM. Maybe you have that deployed, but you can extend it and through other tools such as the Microsoft Desktop Optimization Pack. You can get your tools for MedV and AppV to allow you to do OS virtualization and application virtualization, and just have an overall better desktop deployment and management scenario. So finally, once you've collected all of the outputs from these assessments in these three key areas, it's time to develop the migration roadmap. And there are several areas that you need to discuss, and what we recommend is you get your key stakeholders in a room for half a day or a day and plan this out. So, you need folks to do desktop deployment and management. You need your IT infrastructure folks. You need your application development folks, especially if you have a large amount of in-house developed applications, or your business analysts if they support line of business applications that are from vendors. You need to get those folks in a room and look at the outputs from all three of these areas and determine a rollout approach. You might look at artifacts from your Windows XP migration. What lessons learned did you have there? What can you apply and how you rolled it out to your company? How can you apply that to Windows 7? What is your desktop management strategy? So what are those outputs, and are there tools that you need to plan for and get those in place prior to your pilot? This will help you develop your schedule. When you think about how you push these out, are you going to do it by department or business unit or some sort of a hybrid? And then based on the areas where you need help or you want to develop, that can help you determine your resource requirements and what it's going to take to get you there. With those things put together, you should be able to develop a high-level project plan and do your budget estimates. Really what that does and it gives you is you have this roadmap that you can use to really build your entire migration program. It's the first step in planning that you need to complete, and it's certainly recommended to help you mitigate the risks and have a successful migration to Windows 7. So thank you for your time today. I hope this was beneficial. If you have any questions about the webcast, please contact your Catapult Systems account executive. Again, my name is T.D. Williams, and please feel free to contact me as well through your account manager.